Hi, I'm Natalie Ledwell, and today I'm going to share 10 self-care questions for a healthier and more successful you. So when you're feeling down or low, extra sensitive or drained, how do you take care of yourself? So if you're like most people, then you probably try to cure these negative emotions with many things like mani-pedis, you buy yourself flowers, you treat yourself to your favorite comfort food, maybe a lovely glass of wine. And while all of these things usually are a legitimate way of practicing self-care, most people also forget that self-care comes from self-worth. So the hard truth is that you can't practice self-care without truly believing that you deserve all of these good things in the first place, because our mindset really does control all of that. So this is why it's important to tackle the root cause of your lack of motivation or your low vibration or just plain boredom, and make sure that you're not hiding from your real problems and numbing out by doing things like shopping or mani-pedis or sitting down in front of the TV and binge watching a Netflix series. So if you're open to a new way of self-care that truly transforms your low vibration into real loving kindness, especially for yourself, then I suggest that you ask these 10 questions to yourself for a healthier, more successful you. So the first question is, number one, what am I not saying that needs to be said? So are there situations in your life right now where you really feel like you should say something, but you're not actually saying it, you're kind of keeping it to yourself? Now, I am definitely guilty of this because I know that my 18-year marriage ended about 5 years ago. And I did know that towards the end, especially the last 2 years, there were so many things that I really wanted to say. But in my mind, I'm like, well, if I say this, there's only one way this conversation is going to end, and it's going to be divorce. So in the end, that's what ended up happening anyway. And it was like we had this huge canyon of things that was just full of all the stuff that I couldn't say. And if I really had the courage to be able to bring up these conversations and these topics, then maybe we'd still be together. I don't know. But really think about where you're holding something back. And when you want to say something that feels uncomfortable, it doesn't have to be confrontational. Like seriously, you could say something from a place of love and create a space before you bring up the subject where you both are knowing that you're coming from love and that it's going to be an uncomfortable conversation, but that you're in it for the long haul, and you want to make sure that when you finish the conversation, you come to a place where both people are being heard, being seen, and that the solution from it is something that you can both work with, okay? So number two is, do I feel unheard or left out? Okay, so when we feel like we're not being seen, heard, or valued, or being left out of certain things, which is definitely how I felt towards the end of our marriage, I felt resentful. Now the challenge is once you go down the road of resentfulness, then what happens is it's very difficult to come back from that. Okay, so if you're feeling unheard or you're feeling left out, is this, like I would question, is this true? What's going on here? Because I think a lot of the times I was just blaming Glenn for a whole bunch of things that I no longer could blame him for once we split, because I'm like, I've lost my scapegoat. What am I going to do? So I had to make sure that I was able to take responsibility for my own things. So think about, is there somewhere where you're not being heard or where you feel like you're left out, and what can you do about that? Okay. Question number 3 is, what fear am I afraid to face? For me, it was divorce. And in the end, it was, to be honest with you, it's so far down the, feeling helpless, feeling like I wasn't heard, feeling resentful, that by the time our marriage did end, I was grateful, I was relieved. But what fear are you afraid to face right now? Can you identify what that is? And then just sit in a moment of going, okay, well, what if this does happen? I think a lot of the time we fear the unknown because we're not sure how it's going to play out. And not that we ever know how something is going to play out, but if that's the worst case scenario, can you live with it? So really sit in and identify what it is that you're afraid to face. And then also sit in the possibility of, if it does happen, how it can actually work out in your favor. Okay, question number 4 is, am I holding on to resentment or guilt? I definitely was. And this is what I came to realize, that as soon as I blame someone or something or a situation outside of myself, then I lose all ability to do anything about it, because it's outside of me. It's something I can't do anything about. But as soon as I take responsibility for my own thoughts and my own feelings and my own actions and my reactions, that's when I was able to start to change and turn my life around and become exceptionally grateful and happy for my life. So are you holding on to resentment or guilt somewhere in your life? And then also sit in the possibility of, well, what would it look like to release this? And I got to a point where I had to release it because I had no one else to blame except for me. And to be honest with you, being in that place, it's tough for a little bit, because you really have to fess up to I had to fess up to my contribution to the end of our marriage. And then when I was able to face that and understand that, and understand why I did and thought certain things, it was just so freeing to be able to do that. So think about if you're holding on to resentment or guilt, and what it would be like to be able to release that. Okay, question number 6 is, do I have an abundance mindset? So a lot of the times when we get into these places of stress and fear and scarcity, it's because we're focusing on what we don't have. We're focusing on what possibly could go wrong. So when that is our focus, remember, we only have to hold a thought in our mind for 17 seconds and we can start to create that as our reality. So if scarcity and fear is your go-to when it comes to thinking about your future or a current situational scenario in front of you, then all you're going to see and all you're going to attract is more of the same. So ask yourself, do I have an abundance mindset? Am I in a place where, I believe that we can look after each other, that there is enough of everything, that there's enough love, there's enough health, there's enough money to go around for everybody. And that when I do look at something that's a challenge for me right now, what are the thoughts I'm choosing to think? And do they come from a place of abundance? So really ask yourself that question and really marinate in the answer of what they could possibly be. Okay, so question number 7 is, does my everyday choices bring me long-term fulfillment or simply instant gratification? Ooh. This is also a fantastic question as well, because sometimes in the moment when we are feeling a little stressed, and I'm going to speak from personal experience here, if I'm feeling a little stressed or I've had a really rough day, I'll go, okay, well, I've earned myself a glass of wine, which may turn into 2 or 3 glasses of wine. Now, this is instant gratification, and I feel good in the moment. And then the next day I wake up and went, I wish I hadn't have had that 3rd glass. I wish I had have, I want to be making choices that are healthier for me. So think about your long-term fulfillment. You see, I would much rather have maybe 1 glass of wine or no glasses of wine, and then be able to fulfill, my long-term goals of what I have for my health, what I have for my body image, and what I feel about myself. Okay? So think about, are the decisions that you're making for your long-term fulfillment? And if they're not, how can you shift the decisions that you're making right now to be able to do that? Okay, so number 8, question number 8. How are we going with the questions so far? They're pretty deep, right? So number 8 is, do I use situations to grow and evolve or to beat myself up? Okay, so I again am guilty of of beating myself up. I would set myself impossibly high standards, or I would look at some things that I wasn't happy with, and rather than go, okay, that was a moment, or that was a part of my life, or that was a time where I was making choices that I don't think were really in my highest good, but that was then. Now I'm making different choices. The mistake I was making was stewing over these past times in my life where I wasn't making good choices for myself, and they kept beating myself up for it. I mean, it was bad enough that it happened at the time, but now I'm dragging the energy of this situation with me into the future when I don't need to do that. All I need to do is to forgive myself or to be, and just understand why those choices I made at the time I did, and then move forward with choices that are going to be more in my highest good. So, do you use situations to grow and evolve, or do you simply beat yourself up? And being able to step outside emotionally from these situations and look at all the players and look at what was going on and go, well, what can I learn from this? If this is happening for me, what is the opportunity? What is the learning lesson? What is it that I'm garnering from this particular situation that's going to help me grow and evolve? So really think about that. Okay, so question number 9. Have I said something gentle and loving to myself in the last hour? That's a big one. Because I know for a lot of us, it's very difficult for us to say something good about ourselves. Or we find we're in such a habit of saying all these terrible things and damaging things and beating ourselves up that we've got out of the habit of saying something gentle and loving to ourselves. So I encourage you, and you can do this by setting a little, a reminder on your phone, or setting an alarm on your phone or your watch or something, to stop at some time during the day and just drop in and say something gentle and loving to yourself. Because if self-care is coming from within, this is one of the most powerful and best things that we can do to really show ourselves self-love. Okay, now question number 10. Am I appreciative for all of the things that I have in my life? Now, it is really easy for us to get into a mode where, we're stressed, we're busy, we're juggling all these different balls, we've got all these plates in the air, and we seem to just be surviving and running and going. And then we get to the end of the day, and all we can do is think, oh my God, like this person annoyed me, and I have all these things I've got to look after. And again, because that's what we're focusing on, we're attracting more of it. But when we can stop at the end of the day, and I honestly think this should be a daily practice, that maybe it's when you go to bed and you can just lay there and think about it. Or if you're writing in a gratitude journal and writing down 5 things every day, 5 new things every day. Are you appreciative for all the things that you have in your life? And sometimes, all we need to do is watch the news, see what's happening in the world, to be super appreciative for everything that we have. We live in this, most of us, if you're watching this video, live in a Western country where we have clean running water, we have housing, we have all these little things that we take for granted, but really are not taken for granted in many areas of the world. So do you think about all the little things, and not just the things, but the people and the opportunities, and all the things that you love about your job and your family and your spouse or your significant other. Think about these things and really marinate and stew in that for a little while. So that really helps to raise your vibration, and it helps to really see what self-care is all about. So what does it really mean? Well, self-care sometimes means taking a deep breath. Sometimes it's just shutting down your computer. Sometimes it's just having a good cry. Wow, having a good cry is really therapeutic. But regardless of what it means for you, make sure that you're honest yourself today. Now, before I go, I'd like to ask you, do you have other favorite self-care tips that have helped you become healthier? If you do, please share them here in the comment box with others, because we'd really love to and value your opinion. Now, my name is Natalie Ledwell, and stay tuned for a new release every Thursday and Saturday. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.